Hey, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to episode 2 of Unscripted on the sofa, talking about street photography with Mark and
Flavio.
So today we're just going to talk about why colour or why black and white for your street photography, because I think everyone's got an opinion on this, and we just thought we'd have a little a chat about it and find out what you like afterwards in the comments. But let's just talk about it here, Flavio.
Yeah. And let's say that overall there's always this kind of debate about black and white or color, which one is better for street photography, which one is more evocative of the old days. And I would say that each of these two approaches has its own strengths and weaknesses, and there seems to be a very, very strong preference according to who is shooting about black and white or color. So you probably tend to prefer a bit of black and white overall. I tend to be much more for color. So we could actually take kind of a position on why yes, why not.
Absolutely.
And
Let's
it
go
could be
for
a
it.
good way to discuss this.
Yeah, I'm definitely more old school. I love black and white. Having said that, I was doing a little chat last night on the Photography Academy, and someone said to me, "You say you're a black and white photographer, but you've got a lot of colour on there." And so I had to justify why I got colour there. And a lot of it I think comes down to the type of scene. I do love black and white, and I prefer black and white, but I think sometimes when you're in certain places, colour just works better.
Yeah.
I love the black and white. I love the whole process about it. I love processing it, and I love the sort of good grain in the image. But it has to be good light with black and white as well, I think. Whereas colour, you can get away with a bit more flat light. But what's your views?
Well, my view is that we have color sensors, we have color film, we have a colored world. I enjoy looking at the pictures and seeing what I've seen on the day, and that is one reason why I use color. And I think the idea of the black and white being the old school, being more evocative, etc. We are still looking at this black and white thing as a classic way. We have this kind of vintage thing, but the world we are looking at is still not the vintage one. It's a new world. So that's why I kind of like the color thing.
I totally get that, and I think I'm a bit of a Luddite in that in that world, because you know me well, and I love all things like analog.
Yes.
I have an analog stereo unit with old valves in it. When I try and buy furniture, I try and buy handmade stuff, and I've got a lot of old film cameras, and I guess it's because I've been around the block of more than sort of once, and I come from that sort of school where I shot everything in black and white initially. I'm not that old, having said that. Colour was around, but I've often even toyed with the idea of I do hanker sometimes after a sort of black and white camera. I'd love a Leica camera that just shot in black and white. But then I started thinking to myself, maybe I would like the colour still. And I do like shooting stuff in colour, but I love processing it afterwards. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I just think images, they just look better in black and white. It's my own preference. It is a purely personal thing. But I just think it's more evocative of the street, and I get that thing about being old school, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is old school. There's modern ways of doing things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that having a preference for black and white, it means being old school. I think that in the street photography community there is much this kind of idea that black and white looks a little bit more like the old masters, so you shoot in black and white. I think in reality the big difference is it's a choice. As you said, you like it better in black and white. It's a choice. You choose to process your images that way. And in reality, the shooting in color and processing in black and white, it gives you also much stronger position to process from, because you can process the different color channels to modify your black and white pictures. So it's you are still taking advantage of the technology nowadays to still process your black and white pictures.
I did think though you erred on the side of old and you referred to me as an old git. But,
well, I would do that anyway.
Yeah, and maybe I'm an old git, but you know, I love black and white. I don't get me wrong, I shoot in colour, and whilst I say I hanker after this camera like a monochrome, I can't get my head around and justify it, and I've almost pressed the button so many times, and it's just, I think even if I bought one, I would probably get rid of it after a little while because I start regretting it. But I want that option. I'm kind of like sitting on the fence. I like to think of myself a black and white photographer, but also I do colour when it suits me.
Yep.
Hence this image here. I mean, you're in India. Why wouldn't you shoot colour?
Absolutely.
Having said that, one of my favourite Indian photographers, Raghu Ray, he just shoots everything in black and white.
Let's say that, and this is a very, very strong point for me in the distinction between black and white and colour, is that when you shoot images, you shouldn't think like many people do that if the image doesn't work very much, let's try convert it in black and white, it gives it that kick and it's going to be more artsy. That's not the case. You have to shoot with the mind of shooting black and white or shooting color, or that's how it should normally work. Because with the black and white, it can be more graphic, let's say graphical, the image. You can play with the contrast, with the tones of light. Whereas color, you see a bright color, you see a combination of colors, an association of colors that can be even just the attraction of the image itself. With the black and white, it won't work. You see somebody crossing the street with a very bright red coat. In black and white, it's another shade of grey.
Sure.
It doesn't make the difference. So you have to shoot images in a different way. So this photographer that I don't know actually that you talk about.
I'll show you one of his books later.
Yes.
You know I'm a big collector of books.
Absolutely, yes. But that's the thing. He will shoot with the mentality of shooting black and white. So color won't be his primary draw for shooting the image. Whereas for us, it gets very, very interesting to see all these bright colors that India has, and going abroad, it will be a major attraction for us to shoot color.
Sure.
So it wouldn't occur to us to shoot black and white there.
No, I mean, when I've been to India and I've sat down and I started processing my images, you're just on the laptop, just out on the go, but I've often converted them into black and white, and I've never really been happy with them. I always think the colour one looks a bit better. But then on the other hand, when I'm out photographing in the UK, and I don't know if it's got something to do with the light or just the type of people around, etc., I generally prefer the images in black and white. I mean, I did a big project recently at Aintree for Ladies' Day, and all the images I put out are all black and white, and I think they look brilliant.
Noticed that, yes.
A lot of people say, how do you process your black and white? I've got no real secrets, really. I use one of the oldest programs around for converting stuff. It's called Silver Effects. It was originally owned by Silver Effects, and then it went to Google, and Google put it out for free, and now it's owned by DxO, I think, and you have to pay for it again.
Yeah.
And I'm still using the original version, and I just use some of their presets and tweak them around a little bit, but you get really great contrasty black and white images from it, and I love that.
Yeah, but on the converse, I've been just to Bolivia to shoot the carnival. It's incredibly colorful, and I couldn't even think of having shot that in black and white, because the colors are such a strong trait of these masks and the streets and the dancing, that it would be actually interesting to go there on purpose to shoot black and white and see what kind of different mentality you would use to do that. It would be very, very different as a way of shooting. I know I would shoot very, very differently. And I think that is one of the key things that you have to think about. Black and white or color, how do you shoot it? You have to shoot it differently.
And I know that festival, I mean, you show me the pictures and they're absolutely amazing, and I know we're gonna do a photography workshop there next year, and I'm really looking forward to going to Bolivia. But another workshop that we quite often do is one in Sicily, in Trapani. I always say that wrong, I think, do I?
Yes, no, you didn't say it right.
I said it right. I mean, I know
yes.
you're an Italian man, so
Yes.
you come from there, and I might be insulting you.
No.
Yeah, but it's a festival over the Easter period, and I've always photographed that in black and white. And most of the pictures you see from other photographers are in black and white, and it kind of works. And I don't know if it's because the event in Bolivia is quite a happy event, almost like a carnival type event.
Yes.
Whereas the event in Sicily is quite sombre around the Easter parades, and black and white just works really, really well for it because they're kind of all mafiosa, and it just works really, really well. But again,
Well, when we go there next Easter, we'll make a point to shoot the whole thing in colour and not convert one in black and white and see how bad it
I'll
is.
let you do that.
I will make a point of doing
I
that.
might have bought my Leica monochrome by then, and I'll just
Yes.
shoot it all in black and white. So maybe that's something we should do, and we could share it with everyone then.
Yeah.
But so it's difficult. So when you're processing, because afterwards you get the image back, you look at it on your laptop or your desktop, do you go through a different processing technique when you shoot a colour, Flavio?
Yes, I certainly have a little preset my images go through when I import them in Lightroom, simply just to give them that little kick to start from, because instead of the very, very flat raw images, I always shoot raw. And then, yes, let's say that if I process in color, the amount of modification to the image is not going to be very much. It's going to be mostly dodging and burning. And for example, I had to modify my preset a little bit for the Bolivia images because they were way too saturated.
Okay.
The saturation was so high, the color was so strong that they almost look unnatural.
Is that because the clothes they were wearing were so bright, or
Yes,
was it
they
because
are
of the light?
so
or?
intense. The
Okay.
color of the clothing is so intense that with that little bit of boost in saturation that my preset had, it was looking unnatural. So I had to change it. Going to black and white, I would certainly work on the picture a little bit more. I would
Sure.
work more on the contrasts, on the little clarity slider just
Yep.
a little bit, and try to work. I think you have to pay a lot of attention to the noise issue with the color images. If that, especially with the dodging and burning, you can see the grain that starts creeping in. I would be less worried about it in the black and white images.
Yeah.
And I never add grain though. I definitely don't add grain, although I don't mind it at all in my images, be it color or black and white.
I mean, I don't add grain. I do add a bit of clarity to give it that punch. I add quite a bit of contrast. I like my images with pure blacks in it and pure whites in it. So I like that sort of punchiness, almost like the sort of the old Kodak Tri-X. Although I don't use that as a go-to sort of preset. Thanks. But one of the disadvantages of doing black and white in Silver Effects is that it's a program outside of Lightroom or outside of Photoshop, and so you take your images into there and then you have to do it as a separate thing and you can't batch process it. But I'm not really bothered about that because I don't use it for my sort of professional wedding work as much. But my street photography, where I've got less images and I'm working on them a lot more because they're for me personally, I'll spend a bit more time on them. I'm not bothered if it takes one image at a time.
Yeah, I have to say, for my color images, I do batch process the preset on all of them and then individually dodge and burn, etc., all the stuff that you would do in Lightroom. Black and white, I wouldn't batch process. I would go more image by image, trying to choose the strengths
Sure.
and weaknesses and just fine-tune it to make the image very unique. So I think the post-processing would be very, very different.
And then finally, when you go to print, I just love a good black and white print on a traditional burrata paper. I just don't think you can beat it. And I've gone one step further, and I've gone and bought myself a printer that only prints in black and white with pure carbon inks. We'll put the link below so you can check it out. There's a company in America that just sell pure carbon inks, and they put 7 of them in a package, so your Epson printer or your Canon printer can just print pure black and white. No colour there, unfortunately, so I'm limited on that end. I can't print anything out in colour.
Well, I got rid of my printer simply because it's such a skill to print properly that I found I don't have the time to also do that and do it properly because I'm a perfectionist, and printing properly takes a lot of work and a lot of let's say fine tuning of which kind of paper you're using, which colors, how you interface your program with your printer. And I think I'll leave it to the professionals to print my images in color. Because
you know, I totally agree with you. And you can send the print to the lab, and they print it. If it comes back wrong, you send it back to them. You don't pay for the mistake.
Yeah.
They send it to you again, corrected, and you've got a great print. Whereas I know sometimes I've probably done 5 or 6 prints.
I have to, yes.
Just to get the right one.
Yeah.
A bit like the old darkroom days, you do lots and lots of prints to get it right. And I do get the fact that just you can send it off to a printer. You can still send it off to places like Loxley's, and they will print it on burrata paper for you. It's going to cost a slight premium, of course, £3, £4, £5 a print, but obviously it's going to be a lot better than a standard sort of print on Fuji paper.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think. To summarize, I think color, black and white, it's not a value of the image that is higher or lower. It's a choice. It's personal preference. And I think mostly the difference will be the mindset of shooting. You're going to concentrate a lot more on the graphical part of and the contrast for the black and white is going to be a little bit more complex to balance the image with the color, but color will be a prominent let's say part of the image. And then the post-processing is going to be a bit different. You're going to just look at it differently, and the printing is going to be a different choice again. So there are just 2 different paths. Neither is better or worse, and I think subject matter is going to be a big part of the choice.
No, I totally go along with that. There's a big difference in the processing. And I don't think there is a right or wrong. It's whatever your personal preference should be. But I think the one thing with street photography, particularly street photography, is the one thing that trumps everything is moment.
Absolutely.
And you can have a great image, and you can print it, and it can look great in either colour or black and white. But if you've got an image that isn't great, doesn't matter what you do to it, it's never going to be a great image.
No.
So
trying to save it with a black and white is not going to make it
absolutely. But thank you very much for tuning in again today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. We'd love you to give us your comments. Tell us what you think about colour or black and white in the comment section. We'd really appreciate it. I promise you we will come back and answer every one of your comments. But for now, it's goodbye from Mark and goodbye
from Flavio.
Thank you very much.
You.